Welcome to the Productive Life podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with Cami, who went from working all the time and feeling burned out to things feeling easier and having more fun than ever before in just 4 weeks. Welcome to the Productive Life podcast hosted by me, Megan Minns. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to be more productive in their business and their personal life. Because as a business owner, your business and personal life are connected, and we can't talk about one without talking about the other. Each week, you'll learn about productivity, organization, personal development, self-care, business strategies, and more. And now, let's get started. Before we dig into the interview, I just want to go ahead and remind you about my brand new free video training, the Intuitive Execution Framework. In this free video training, you'll learn the 4 areas that you need to focus on in your life in order to have more fun and see more results while feeling more fulfilled and energized than ever before. You can go to meganminns.com/framework or click the link beneath this podcast in order to access the video training instantly and get the free workbook as well. Okay, so I am thrilled to have Cami on the podcast today. She is a designer, digital strategist, and teacher on a mission to help real deal entrepreneurs like you swap out their outdated or barely there websites for a digital presence that reaps dazzling rewards and results. This interview with Cami is incredible. She's such an inspiration and really proves that changing your mindset and the way you spend your time doesn't have to take a long time. Cami shares her journey with us from working all of the time and feeling burned out, trying to implement productivity hacks and strategies to make things better, and how she was able to ultimately leave all of that behind and begin having more fun and even taking every Friday off, something that would have been unspeakable in the past. And all of that happened in less than 4 weeks. I can't wait for you to hear this interview, so let's go ahead and dig in now. Hey, Cami, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today and talk about how you've been able to have more fun and incorporate some hobbies back into your business and life. But before we dig in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and just tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, so I'm so excited to be here with you, Megan. Thank you so much for having me on. So excited to chat. For everyone listening, if we haven't met yet, I'm Cami. I'm a web designer. I'm a strategist. I'm a teacher, and I help really ambitious entrepreneurs create beautiful websites that help them sell their services and book more clients so that they can do those big dreamy things. Like I just had one of my clients quit their 9-to-5 job and move to Bordeaux in France, which is jealous. Bananas. I know. I'm jealous.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, Bordeaux. I need to go visit there.
I know. I'm watching all their Instagram stories, looking at the markets and the beautiful food and the beaches, just being like, oh, yes.
Okay. You'll have to tell me who this is later so I can follow them on Instagram as well.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for introducing yourself and thanks again for being here. Just want to get the conversation started. I want to get to know you a little bit, a little bit better. How long have you been in business and doing what you're doing?
I've been running my business for about 3 years now. And I started out, I kind of cut my creative teeth in the art world. I was working 9-to-5 jobs here in New York City. And I had this moment where I looked up the food chain and I thought like, man, I've worked so hard to get here and I don't want any of the jobs of my boss or her boss. I had this moment where I was like, what am I doing? And then I promptly fell off a cliff and had a bit of a quarter life crisis because I was like, well, if everything's been leading to this and this is not what I want, what is what I want? And the brain exploded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I fell into Google and I found every find your passion pyramid scheme possible.
Oh, yeah.
All of the shady internet gurus. I've read all of their sales pages. And eventually it led me into traveling and travel blogging, which meant I had to create my first website. I had to figure out how to design and learn a little bit of code. And from there, I realized really quickly that travel blogging wasn't for me, but I loved design and I loved building websites. So I started working with clients and my business kind of blossomed from there. And eventually people started asking me to teach them how to do things. So I added a course into the mix of things as well.
Oh, I love that. And that's actually how we first met each other, was through your online course creation side of business. I used to work with Mariah Cause, and I know you were a client of hers. And we first met in person at Craft and Commerce, right?
The best conference. Yeah.
The best conference in the world. Yeah.
So fun.
I'm already bought my ticket for next year. So if anyone else is going, are you going next year?
Yeah, I got the second they released, they were like, here's the early bird price, get it cheap. I was like, Done. I'm in.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, if anyone listening is also going, Cami and I will be there. But it was so much fun to get to like meet you in person. And I love taking these online friendships and making them real. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was also really excited when you joined my program, Intuitive Execution, a couple months ago, because I just love you. And I was like, I get to spend more time with Cami. But then we started actually working together through this journey of intuitive execution. And I know the past few months have been a bit of a journey for you, right? Like things have kind of changed. And so I'd like I'd love to hear a little bit more about before joining intuitive execution. What were you struggling with? Like what made you join? What were you hoping to achieve? Kind of where were you at?
Yeah, well, it was at Craft and Commerce, actually. I'd skipped out of one of the talks and I came up to the roof and you were hanging out up there with some people. And so we got chatting. And throughout the whole weekend, I'd come off this period of really intense work where I was working with my one-on-one web design clients, doing all of the things you need to do to run your own business, and also building and launching this course and marketing that. And I had been doing nothing but working. I was working nights and weekends, and I had no hobbies because my hobby was like researching new marketing strategies, which I can get so nerdy about, and I love that stuff. But really it had taken over my whole life. And that weekend of Craft and Commerce, I was realizing like, oh man, here I am hanging out with all my friends, meeting these amazing people, and I have nothing to talk about besides work because I have gotten so boring over the last few months. So boring and so burnt out. And when we were chatting on the roof, you were sharing with me about like your year and how that had been, because I know you've had a really transformational year too, and you've shifted into new mindsets and new habits and all of this stuff. And I thought like, man, I want that. Like what Megan's been able to do and the way she's thinking about things is so interesting and appealing. And I want a little bit of that magic in my life. So when you came out with intuitive execution, I was like, that's it. No brainer. Click the buy button. Like, I know it's going to be amazing because you're great. And it really was. It was such a good experience.
Thank you. Yeah. I remember our roof talk very fondly. And I don't like the idea for intuitive execution came from that trip. And the idea that that's what it was called happened while we were in a session, and talking to you afterwards too was so helpful for me to talk to other people about my journey and hear what other people are experiencing and feeling as well. So I will always look back on that rooftop talk as like a big pivotal moment for me as well. And I love what it's led to. And so, you know, you said you were really working all the time, didn't have a lot of hobbies, were feeling burned out. What other things, like had you tried other things before joining intuitive execution to try to re-engage the hobbies or have more fun? Or like, did you try to do anything else before joining?
Yeah, I tried a lot of different productivity things because I think, you know, there's always more to do in the day. And I feel like this year, you know, a client service-based business and a course-based business are two totally different business models. So I feel like in a way I'm almost running two things at the same time. Yeah. And I started this new business. And so what I'd really been looking at before intuitive execution was a lot of like productivity, time management, get more done type of things. Yeah. Which always, to me, I'm quite a creative person and I don't love a lot of structure. I feel quite like boxed in by too many boundaries. So to me, all of those productivity systems often seemed like quite rigid, and I would do them and I would see a little bit of results for like a week and then everything would drop off a cliff because it wasn't my system and it was designed around the person who designed it, who might have a completely different personality to mine. And often like the systems and processes people, their brains just work in a different way than my brain works. I'm like, give me the big picture, give me the high level, give me the 3 quickest things I can do. Like we're always talking about like minimum viable products. I'm always like, Megan, what's the minimum viable way I can execute this? So yeah, I was getting stuck there. And then I was also finding like, I was telling myself things about how, you know, I wanted freedom and flexibility and I wanted to have fun and I was building this business so that I can spend time with family and travel and do all of that. But my actions were in no way lining up with my words. You know, instead of spending time with my boyfriend when he came home from work, I would be like hunched over my laptop working on my webinar slides. And this person who I love is right in front of me being like, hey, like, let's hang out, let's have some fun. And I'm like, no, I have to work. So yeah, I found that like not only was I not getting results with the productivity and planning stuff, but it was leading me in slightly the wrong direction. What I needed is a bigger reframe. And that I feel like is something that I loved about intuitive execution, because it's not about just getting more done for the sake of it. It's about getting done the important things and being productive, but also so that you can live your life in the ways you want to, so you can have more fun and create that freedom. And I feel like that to me was really missing from other conversations.
I love that. And I mean, your experience speaks so true to my experience. Part of my journey was I did the same things. Like all of this is stuff I learned too. I didn't come out of the womb like an intuitive person. And I went through this too. I remember very distinctly, it was in 2017. I was doing the same thing you're talking about, just like working all the time. And I was enjoying work, but it was just all I had besides like my husband and like social things that made me feel like I resented them because they took me away from work. And there was this one conversation where I was working really late. My husband said almost the same. Like, I don't know if your partner said the same thing to you, but Johnny told me like, hey, like, why, like, didn't you start this whole thing to have more fun and to like have freedom and flexibility and like hang out with me? And I was like, yeah, but that's just not, it's just, I can't do that right now. Once
like when I get to the milestone. Yeah. And the thing is like that day doesn't come, right? Like there's no end point. You're never like successful enough or like done enough. So you've got to like find a way to be good where you are and like live how you want to live now instead of waiting for like when this magical thing happens.
Oh yeah. So true. So I totally understand that feeling. And it feels really nice to not be stuck in that place anymore. And, when you were thinking about joining intuitive execution, I know you said it was like a hell yes, because of our rooftop conversation, but did you have any like specific doubts or concerns when it came to joining and like if it would work for you, or how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I didn't know, to be honest, I didn't know 100% if it would work for me. Yep. I was like willing to give it a try. And I'd seen it work for you. And obviously we know each other. So I had faith in the process and in you, but I wasn't like 100%, like I'm going to do this thing and I will be guaranteed these results. I was open to giving it a shot, but not fully convinced that it would be like the one true thing.
Yeah.
Which, because like, I feel like there is no like one thing that fixes everything. There are just like a series of really great tools.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And I think, for everyone listening, Cami was also in the pilot session of the program. So when she joined as well, there were no testimonials, there were no case studies. I had testimonials for my one-on-one work, but it wasn't untested, essentially public process. So it makes total sense that you would be feeling that way. And I think a lot of people, when they come to join any program, experience doubts like that too, especially for those. A lot of people I end up working with are habitual course buyers and have totally done the thing of like buying course after course after course. And so, once they realize that's what they're doing, it can be like really like in wonder, like, will this be the course, or like, is this going to work for me? So I think it's really natural to experience that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And one thing that's helped me a lot with that is kind of releasing some of that like perfectionism, like I must do this 100%. I must finish this course all the way and do every worksheet and check every box. And once I do that, I'll like be a good student and I'll get an A on my homework, which like has been my default mode for a long time. And I think recently I've started to shift that to think like, did I get value from this course and did I enjoy the experience and did I get something really useful out of this, even if I didn't do all those other things? And the answer is nearly always yes. I feel like whenever I invest in myself, it's the best investment ever. There is no wrong investment. And so that's how I think about it these days.
Yeah, I love that too, because I think one of the things we talk about in intuitive execution is learning to trust your intuition and trust yourself and not always looking externally for like, this is the next solution and follow this step by step and you're going to have perfect results, and not like looking to others to make those decisions for us, and learning how to look internally. But I still think that there are tons of resources out there that can be super beneficial. So it goes from a mindset shift of like looking to a course or an expert or a program or even a book to like give you the magic pill solution. And instead you change your mind or change your belief to look at it as more of just a resource and a tool and like what things can help you, what can make things faster, more enjoyable for you, but not feeling like it's an take it or leave it all across the board. Like I have to do it all or none of it. It doesn't have to be that way, which I think is really helpful when you change that perspective.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things that you're so good at in intuitive execution is guiding people to the answers that are like in them, right? So I would come to you with a question. I'd be like, Megan, how would you approach this? How should I do this? And you'd be like, well, how would you do this if it was easy for you or if it was fun for you? Or like, how can we make this minimum viable for you? It was always like, every time I'd come to you looking for like here's your like blueprint plan answer, you'd like flip it around on me, which I really appreciated because it does help you develop that sense of, no, here's what I want. Like, here's what's right for me. And I'm coming to this other person for support and for guidance and advice, but like, they're not the holder of all the answers like I am.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of my favorite parts about the journey I've been on. And one of the things I love doing in intuitive execution with my clients is making that shift where it's like, you probably have the answer inside of you. You just haven't actually asked yourself. And even on today's coaching call, that came up again, where it was just like, have you asked your intuition or have you ever written out that question and like journaled about it or reflected on it? And the answer is usually no, because
right. Or like you might have asked, or you might be like getting this information from yourself and like not listening. So like, I know for me, my intuition speaks, it's like, it's in there. So I remember when I was working my corporate job, I got this little ping on the first day I was there. It was a great job with really smart, lovely people, but it was not the right job for me. Definitely not the right environment. And I got this little ping of like, hey, this isn't right. This isn't for you. And I was like, no, shut up. Like, I'm just nervous because it's the first day, whatever. But like over time, that little voice or that little ping, like it didn't go away. It got louder and louder and louder. And I kept not listening and not listening and not listening. And eventually it smacked me upside the head and I got carpal tunnel and I like had to take some time off. And I find that that's a pattern for me. Like if I'm not listening to that little intuitive hit early, like it ends up with me in some kind of like physical distress.
It has to manifest itself in like physically stopping you from working.
Yeah. And I'm like, cool. Like I could have listened to this before I was in the emergency room. Thanks.
Had I not suppressed it, I mean, I used to suppress my intuition to the point where I was like, I am not intuitive. Like that's a statement I believed about myself for so long. And I think my intuition was just like, okay, sure, whatever, and it was like, we'll back off until you're ready. And I missed out on a lot of, I think, time of really learning about myself. Because I think the more you connect with your intuition, the more you really learn to be confident and trust yourself and like tap into what you truly desire and like where you're really trying to go in life.
Yeah. And did you feel like it was like, did you feel like I'm not intuitive and like I'm sad about that? Or did you feel like it was kind of like a badge of honor? Like I'm not intuitive, I'm analytical.
Yeah. I think I had absolutely had this belief about my identity that like there are intuitive people and then there are non-intuitive people. And I guess like analytical would be that side. And I totally put myself in the analytical box, which is so funny to me to look back on because I always felt like a fraud in that box because I always felt like I wasn't very good at being analytical. Like I never felt like I knew all the right numbers to be tracking or like had the perfect spreadsheet, even though I have good spreadsheets. But like it always felt like a place where I was never even secure in that. But it was like this identity I had adopted and thought was my only choice. And so I was working with a coach who was very intuitive and talked about intuition. And like, she asked me on our first session together, how does your intuition speak to you? And I was like, I don't have one. And she was like, you do.
Yeah.
Like, where is it? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't think I do. And so I don't think it was a badge of honor. It just I felt so detached and disconnected from that. And if you had told me then that I would be where I am now teaching a program called Intuitive Execution, like I wouldn't believe you, which is the power of mindset changes and transformations in and of themselves. But yeah, it wasn't a badge of honor, but I definitely felt like it was like a fact that it wasn't a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's very,
I can relate to that on kind of the flip side of things, whereas like I've always sort of told myself like, you're really creative and you're not like a systems and processes person. And I've always thought of that as being the divide. And I think one of the things that I loved about the program is that you do teach systems and processes and like how to create some containers and boundaries, but not in a way that's designed to like squash you in or hold you back. Like you know, the way you teach them, it's like those boundaries are an amplification tool. So you've got like a container for your creativity so that it can grow and it can like build and it doesn't just wash out all over the place. And so that to me was an interesting mindset shift for me, being like boundaries and systems are not there to hold you back. They're actually there to like amplify creativity and flow and all of that, and intuition and all that good stuff.
I love that. So when you were in the program, I know you joined it and you didn't really know if it would work for you or not. Was there a specific moment for you where you were like, this is working? Like, was there an instance where it was like, I think this is starting to work for me?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think really early on thinking about what would your ideal week be like and what do you actually want to do, and planning around things like sleep and happiness and exercise and fun instead of planning around things like meetings and client calls and all of that. That was an interesting shift for me. And I started implementing it. I was lucky enough, I joined in a period of time where I did have a little breathing room on my calendar. So I was lucky to be able to like play with some of these ideas a bit without worrying too much about the stuff that was already there. And awesome. So really quickly I was like, oh yeah, you know, I used to ride horses as a kid and I used to go to dance class. And I haven't done either of those things in like 10 years. And I live in New York City where the entire world's at your fingertips. So like I could probably make that happen tomorrow. And I did. So I like found a barn to ride at. I found this amazing studio to take classes at. And I got those scheduled on the calendar. I started doing them. And then from there really started like getting a sense of, I've got this many good, happy working hours in me a day, and beyond that is pointless. So why don't we shut down the computer, go like have a glass of wine with the boyfriend, get some good sleep so you can get up and go riding the next day. So it wasn't like a long process to implement at all. Like it's not hard. It's not complicated. You don't need like 6 months to make it happen. I started being able to put it into place and apply it to my life really quickly. So within the first week of the program, I was like already changing things up.
I love it. That makes me so happy, especially the horseback riding. I just love seeing you on Instagram stories, like with your horse in the barn. I just love that so much. And, you know, I really am just so grateful to have worked with you in this and to see how much joy, because like we have known each other for a while and I can just see in our interactions how joyful you are and how much energy is there. And it feels like a different energy than was there before. It feels like bigger in like a good way. I don't know if you felt that as well, but I feel like I can see it just talking to you.
No, I definitely feel that. And it's so funny, like when you start, like for me, you know, I was working all the time and I was thinking like learning about this new strategy is going to get me further. It's going to get me to where I want to be. But it's been really interesting to take a step back and be like, no, I'm going to go take a riding lesson today or go spend some time at the barn, do this thing that has nothing to do with work. And yet in a very magical way, it's taught me so much about my own business. Like, you know, my riding instructor always says, when you're riding a horse, you're supposed to like initiate good forward motion. You want to initiate that momentum and then you want to like sit there and do as little as possible so that you're in perfect balance. You're not inhibiting that momentum and you're not blocking it in any way. But you're just guiding it and like supporting it. And I was like, oh, that's how I should be running my business too.
What an amazing metaphor.
Ding, ding, ding. So yeah, it's been good on so many levels.
Oh, that's so awesome. And I know you've talked a little bit about some of the results you've had since joining Intuitive Execution from implementing just this different way of living your life and managing your time and making decisions. Are there any other results that you've had from the program that you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, when I came in, like I did your 90-day goal setting, figured out my sort of top 3 things, which at the time were, I wanted to add 1,000 people to my email list. I wanted to record an evergreen version of my webinar, and I wanted to prep for my next launch and get all my assets ready in my emails and whatnot. And I was able to add those 1,000 subscribers in a way that was so simple and fun and easy. I like woke up one day and looked at my ConvertKit and I was like, is that a joke? Because I didn't really work very hard. And suddenly like, here are 1,000 new people. And it was so fun. All I had to do was like do some fun collaborations with my friends. So that was great. I got a great result and it didn't feel like I'd worked hard for it. And then I was like, oh, what is this new feeling of like being okay with it being so easy? Let me journal around that.
That's a big adjustment, I think, for a lot of people when you have that belief that it has to be hard and then you start to prove to yourself that it can be easy. It's almost a little uncomfortable at first. You have to like really wrap your head around it.
Right? Because it's like you work hard and you hustle and you try your best and all of these things. And then sometimes you just show up and it like all magically falls into place.
That's the best. I love it.
Yeah. So that happened. And then I actually took recording the evergreen version of my webinar off my to-do list. I realized that it was not a priority right now. It could come later. And that was like such a relief and such a weight off. So I think part of like what the intuitive execution framework helps with is not only like getting things done and having more fun doing it, but like recognizing when you don't need to do something right now and when you can move that down the line and get a bit more space that way. So that I count as a huge win, even though I didn't actually make progress on that goal, just by like saying, no, this is not a priority for me right now. I feel like that was awesome. And then the launch prep is currently underway and it's going really well. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm achieving those goals that I set out to achieve at the beginning of the program. But in a way that's sort of like easy and flowy. And so I like when I hit that goal of my email list, I was like, oh, cool.
Did you celebrate your goal achievement? I hope you did.
I did celebrate. Good. I had a margarita.
Yes, that's a good way to do it. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like there's some mindset shifts involved in this whole process and that you've made over the past couple of months. And so like, I'd love to hear, like, what were some of the big mindset shifts you had to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think the willingness to like let things be easy is such a big one. And I've worked with Mariah and I know I've heard her whole spiel many times about like evergreen webinars and having income that you don't have to work so hard for, like breaking your brain. And I've always thought, yeah, that's nice, but that's not going to be me. I'm going to be loving it when it's all easy. Like it's going to be so great. But I think having experienced things being easier lately, I realized like, oh no, that is a legitimate mindset shift. You need to be able to be okay with that ease and like let go of the need to work so hard for everything and allow that kind of stuff to come to you. So that's been a huge one.
Oh, I love that. And what do you think is possible for you now that you've made these mindset shifts? Like what is now possible in your mind for you that maybe didn't feel possible before?
I mean, I'm working right now, like I said, on my launch, which is, you know, people moan about launching so much. It's so stressful. And, you know, it's a one-way ticket to Burnoutsville, basically, the way that everybody else talks about launching. And so I'm really excited. I feel like I was able to practice this new way of doing things and practice the kind of like intuitive execution framework, get it dialed in. And now I get to go apply it to this big project that typically is something that people find really stressful, really like burns people out. I know for me, like I've experienced feeling burned out after just like one little webinar, so let alone a whole 2-week launch. So I'm stoked to like take this to the next level and take my ninja skills and apply them to this project and see what's possible. See if I can pull off having a really fun, easy, chilled, and very profitable launch, which I'm confident that I can.
Yeah, I know you can too. I'll be here cheering you on along the way.
Yeah. And likewise, because we're doing it at the same time.
I know. We'll be launching around the same time. So we'll be chatting. We can always brainstorm if you're struggling with anything through the launch. But I've done a launch with the intuitive. I've done several launches like after implementing this framework in my life. And one of them was so easy. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like I had that moment for me where I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like I'm barely doing anything. And we've like gotten such great results. And then the second launch, I feel like a lot more of the limiting beliefs came up for me. I felt like there were more things to work through. So I think that's what's really cool about mindset work is that like, it's never a thing you check the box and you're done. Every time you up level or try to show up in a new way, there's going to be different things that pop up for you, but you have the tools now to handle them. And so, you know, before going through intuitive execution, the launch probably would have just burned you out. But now you have at least some tools to rely on, some different habits and patterns, and you'll probably have an incredible launch and it'll be super easy. But I'm super excited.
And I can also see like with this toolkit where things are getting out of whack. Like, you know, it's always a work in progress. It's never done. Sometimes you are better at like actually lining up what you say you want with what you're doing. And sometimes you're not. So like this past week, for example, I've not been getting as much sleep as I should have because I've been working a little bit later and then like staying up a little bit later watching Netflix to wind down. And I've noticed it. And because I have this framework and this toolkit, I've been able to be like, hey, ding, 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 not the thing that you want and not the thing that's going to help you get the results you want. So let's make a plan to change that. I can have like a little chat with myself. I feel like that's so useful.
I love that too, because I think that's something that's really important is the idea that, you know, it doesn't have to be flip the switch, you're a totally different person, but it starts to increase your awareness. And instead of just living this way by default for several weeks, you're able to catch it and identify it and shift and pivot where you need to so that you don't actually end up burning out, which I love to hear. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
I'm so excited to see how it all goes.
Me too. So, you know, as we're wrapping up, like what surprised you about this experience or maybe who you became inside of it, but did anything like surprise you?
Yeah, a lot of the mindset work surprised me, particularly the piece around energy levels. So I have always felt like I wake up every day and I'm a slightly different version of myself. My energy is a little bit different. What I'm interested in or feel like doing that day is a bit different. And things just like ebb and flow. Whereas my boyfriend wakes up and he's like full batteries. He's on, he's at like a 10 and he's always at a 10 when he wakes up. And then he like, the battery goes down throughout the day and then he goes to bed and then same thing over and over. And I've always been like, are you like a fascinating alien? Who are you? Or like, is there something wrong with me? Like, why am I not that way? Why can't I be consistent like that? And one of the things that you teach in intuitive execution is really the fact that men and women are wired differently in terms of energy levels and like how to plan your day and manage things around your fluctuating energy. And so that for me was like a big light bulb of being like, oh, I'm like not messed up. Yeah. I'm just different. I'm just wired a bit differently.
Yeah. It's almost like that permission that like, oh, nothing's broken. Like I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me that I don't feel this way. And this permission to just like embrace those energy levels. And like you said, learn how to leverage them to actually make your planning more effective and powerful. So I love that. I remember when I taught that, I feel like that lesson in particular has surprised a lot of people where they're like,
right. Because nobody, like, when do you get taught this stuff? Never. There's no class in school that teaches you how to do this. There's no class in college. You certainly don't learn it in the corporate world. And like, if I had some of these tools in my corporate world, like maybe I would have been in a better fit job. Maybe I would have been a lot happier and not like running out the door trying to like figure out what was next. But yeah, nobody teaches this. And I think it's so important. And I'm just so happy to like have had the chance to learn it now.
Awesome. I love that. So, what would you say to someone who is maybe thinking of joining intuitive execution?
I would tell them that you should go for it. Don't hesitate. If you feel like this is for you, if you feel like this is calling to you, you're interested in it, do it. Take the leap, because you're going to get this whole amazing toolkit that not only will you be able to use for the next 4 weeks in the program as you learn it and you implement it, but you'll be able to lean on it for years and years to come in every area of your life. It's useful not just for your business, but also for your personal life and your family and your career and everything. It's tools that'll set you up for success for Forever. So you should do it.
Yeah, forever. And there's lifetime access, so you can come back to it anytime. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Cami, for being here. It's been so good to connect with you and chat through your experience. But for people listening, I'm sure they want to find out more about you and learn how they can connect with you. So where should people go if they want to learn more about you and what you do?
Well, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, if you want to come connect with me after this episode, I would love to chat. If you've got questions about the program for me and you want to talk to me about them, come connect with me. I'm happy to answer anything. I've got a really fabulous free training over at my website, simplesiteblueprint.com. It's all about helping you plan a website that'll get you more clients. So come grab that if you're interested, or come connect with me over on Instagram. I'm at Cami Farey, and you can DM me your questions about intuitive execution.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cami, for being here. I so appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, Cami, and I will talk to you later.
You too. Chat soon.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Cami as much as I did. And before we go, I want to remind you about my brand new free video training, the Intuitive Execution Framework. In this free training, you'll learn the 4 areas you need to focus on in your life in order to have more fun and see more results while feeling more fulfilled and energized than ever before. Go to meganmins.com/framework or click the link beneath this podcast in order to access the video training instantly and get that free workbook as well. Thank you for listening to the Productive Life podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean so much to me if you would share your biggest takeaway on your Instagram stories or wherever you hang out. This helps me understand what you find the most helpful so that I can make more episodes and resources like this. If this podcast has helped you at all, please take just 1 minute to leave a review on iTunes so that we can help spread the word about the Productive Life podcast with others who may enjoy it. And last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get the latest episodes sent to you directly. To learn how to work with me one-on-one or get instant access to freebies, trainings, templates, workshops, and more, be sure to go to meganmins.com right now. I'll see you in the next episode.